I'm actually living every parent's worst nightmare. And when I received the news on November 1st, 2004, that my beautiful 26-year-old daughter, Leslie Ann Mazzara, had been brutally murdered, I did not think I would survive. So just imagine that you're sitting having tea and someone reaches over and fantastically rips your heart from your chest and it drops on the table in front of you, this red pulsating bulb, pulsating and just looking vulgar. And you're just sitting there, and after a time you reach down and you straighten a spoon. And each time we are re-traumatized, it's like somebody rips our heart out again. It's never repaired. It's like a broken heart still beats, is what I've learned. However, it's an effort, a daily process. I call it practicing resurrection. Both of my sons took me aside the day that we buried their sister, each one separately, and said, "Don't even think about protesting the death penalty." I was a Unitarian minister, and they knew very well that we opposed the death penalty. So they wanted to make it really clear that they wouldn't support that. And so I decided that my sons were all I had left, and that if it came down to it, I wouldn't oppose them, that I needed to preserve that relationship. That was early on. So we were so terrified of having Leslie's life and dignity further exploited, that even my sons by then were willing to negotiate a plea agreement if we could avoid a trial. We could stop the cycle of violence, because it was really clear by that time to us that what the system had created, the present judicial system, is something that escalates the violence. You know, there's all of this horrible pain and violence for everyone, and then the system just makes it bigger and bigger, and then it blows up and it becomes entertainment for people, it becomes money, profit. And much to my surprise, everybody was relieved that we actually had, we could do something. Up until this point, we had felt powerless. We were at the mercy of the system. And what we had was the prosecution and the defense sort of refusing to talk. He was pleading not guilty. They weren't giving anybody information. So when he pled guilty and we were working together to resolve it, it suddenly became like not two opposing sides, but everybody in the courtroom working together to find a solution. It was a remarkable sense that I had of peace. It was like we could breathe, whereas before we were holding our breath. So Arlene said, "This is like, you know, we're all on the same side." It was really true. So after that, in January of 2007, we were allowed to give our impact statements, and then we were done. And I wouldn't have known how different life was until, if we had been stuck in the process, in the cycle of violence that's perpetuated by the system, we would not have known that we were so tangled up in it. You know, it's like being, what was subject became object. You know, we could see. And when you're tangled in it, you don't realize the pain you're in, the dysfunctional way you walk through the world. Sister Helen Prejean has been sort of a mentor for me, and she helped me have compassion for the mother of the murderer. I hadn't even been thinking about that. But she told me about the mother of the murderer in Dead Man Walking, and how people would cut up dead animals and throw them on her porch, and she couldn't even go to the grocery store because the people would say such ugly things to her. And for a moment I just had some compassion for Eric's mother, and I thought, my God, there is something worse than being the mother of a murdered child. And so when the hearing was over, my mentor from seminary, who was a feisty Catholic nun, said to me, Cathy, don't you want to meet Eric's mother? And I went, no, I don't think I can. I was terrified. But then I realized that I absolutely had to. That if I was going to honor what I believed and live my values, that I needed to have the courage to face her. And so the defense attorney, when everyone left the courtroom, brought her over to me. And I was just blown away. I hadn't seen her in the courtroom before, but she looked like me. We were about the same age, and she had kind of blonde curly hair, and her eyes were just absolutely raw and red from crying. And we just looked at each other and embraced, and simultaneously said, "I'm so sorry." And I always remember that image of her. And I don't know where she is. I tried to find her because I feel like I'd like to reach out to her and let her know that I don't blame her, and that I see, I know what her pain is. She couldn't stay either. You know, she couldn't stay. She's left the area, and I can understand that, but none of us should have to suffer through this alone. We need each other to try and make the world a safer place. And we certainly aren't going to do it by sanctioning murder. This is a book called Not in Our Name. You may have seen these books. The Murder Victims' Families for Reconciliation. This book is filled, I speak not just for myself, but for all of these family members who have experienced murder. And we don't discriminate. Some of these murder victims have been executed. What the death penalty does, and we are so clear about this, I am, is creates more victims. It takes time to adjust to the darkness. It takes victims, families, time to get over the shock and to be able to even understand that there's something beyond that need for revenge and anger. It takes time. And so if we rush to condemn and get revenge, we stop the process. And the process of the judicial system right now, which keeps you in trauma space for decades even. It takes 23 years to execute someone in the state of California, and you've got appeal after appeal after appeal, which then re-traumatizes the family. So you're always in a defended space. You never can let go to begin to heal. So that's what I'm about. That's, you know, the rest of my life is really about, I feel, is making meaning for Leslie and lifting her memory up as someone who valued life, who loved life, and would be appalled at the thought that the state would commit murder in her name.